To trance or not to trance? People argue a lot about trance in hypnosis. Some people say trance is essential. Some people say trance doesn't exist. And some people say hypnosis works perfectly well without trance. Most of these arguments go nowhere because people are not actually talking about the same thing. They are using the word trance to describe completely different experiences. So rather than picking a side, let's slow this down and look at what is really being discussed. First, there is what is often called the non-trance view. This position says hypnosis does not require a special state. People can respond to suggestion with their eyes open. They can follow instructions while talking. They can change behavior and even perception without relaxation or formal induction. And there's solid research behind this. Barber and Spanos showed that people could respond to suggestion and even experience analgesia without entering anything that looks like a traditional trance. Krystyna Lennon showed that many of the sensations people associate with hypnosis, the heaviness, warmth, time distortion, can be created purely by expectation. From this point of view, hypnosis is about attention, expectation, and meaning. No special state is required. And that explains a lot. It explains why hypnosis can work with your eyes open. It explains why some behavior change happens without depth. It even explains why pain can sometimes be reduced without immersion. But it does not explain everything. Because it does not fully account for experiences where awareness of the body drops away altogether. It doesn't explain why some hypnosis feels completely immersive and absorbing, while some just feels flat and superficial. So I've been a hypnotherapist for 30 years this year, and I decided to go to another specialist for a particular issue that I am not an expert in. They did a hypnosis session with me. They asked me to close my eyes and they talked to me for 90 minutes. I felt very uncomfortable. I felt my back pain. I was freezing cold and was just waiting for it to be over. It didn't work and it was a horrible experience. And yet when I do my recordings, I have an experience whereby I am no longer in my body. My mind goes somewhere completely different. Two very different experiences. It also doesn't explain why simple compliance so often produces no meaningful change. Now, let's look at what people usually mean when they talk about trance. Trance theory is not about sleep or unconsciousness. It's about a functional shift in attention. External sensory input matters less. Internal experience matters more. The person is no longer primarily aware of the room, the chair, or the body. Attention is absorbed internally. And this is what people are describing when they talk about time distortion, loss of bodily awareness, or the sense that they are no longer fully located in their body. That's not simply following instructions. That is complete absorption in a process. And this explains something that non-trance model struggles with. Why some hypnosis feels profound, why some sessions feel completely transformative, and why relaxation on its own often does very little. But trance theory also gets misused. It's often poorly defined. It's often confused with rituals like eye closure, and it's often over-mystified. People end up chasing depth instead of understanding what actually creates that absorption. clarification here matters. Stage hypnosis often gets used as proof that trance is not real. In practice, even stage shows and street hypnosis, people do close their eyes at some point. I have yet to see a stage show or a street demonstration where a subject kept their eyes open the entire time. Prove me wrong, send me a clip, but eye closure happens in all of those instances. Not because trance suddenly appears, but because closing the eyes reduces that sensory input and helps attention narrow. That shift supports that complete absorption. If there are examples of subjects remaining eyes open throughout an entire process, then they are an exception, not the rule. But the point remains the same. Eye closure is not the cause of hypnosis. It's a tool that alters sensory load. And what matters is what happens internally. Now, let's address a statement that comes up a lot. Anesthesia can happen without trance. This is true. Pain can be reduced without absorption. The volume can be turned down while someone remains fully alert. But reducing pain is not the same thing as losing awareness of the body. Those are different mechanisms. Analgesia without absorption is not the same experience as anesthesia with full loss of bodily awareness. And this is where people talk past each other. So the practical reality is this. This is not trance versus non-trance. It's not about choosing a camp. Different mechanisms create different outcomes. Some outcomes only require responsiveness. Some deep-rooted outcomes require absorption. And that brings me to what I actually use. I use phenomena because phenomena creates belief. When something unmistakably happens internally, the brain accepts that a shift has actually occurred. That belief allows absorption. Absorption allows change. I'm not interested in eye closure for its own sake. I'm not interested in relaxation for its own sake. I am not interested in compliance without experience. If nothing happens internally, nothing changes. Phenomena is what convinces the brain it is no longer operating in ordinary awareness. Call it trance, call it absorption, call it whatever you like. Without phenomena, there's nothing for the brain to reorganize around. And that's where most hypnosis falls short. Not because people cannot be hypnotized, but because nothing happened that made the experience believable. And that distinction matters more than you would think. If they feel something unusual, a phenomena, they start to believe at a much deeper level.